How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Wi-Fi battle. Today we're having a battle versus Virudu, also known as Beardu, also known as Weirdu, also known as Miraду, also known as Beardy's Nuts from the Discord server. Go ahead and join the Discord server. It's the best place to go for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Wi-Fi battles right now. There is a link in the description down below. I've also noticed only 36% of people watching this video right now are actually subscribed, so just double check you subscribe because you might not be. YouTube likes to do this thing where it unsubscribes people for some reason. It's a bit bizarre. No, it doesn't. And if you're not subscribed in the first place, why not? It's free, it helps me out, and I really appreciate it. With that being said, let's jump into the team preview. I was trying so hard not to laugh while recording this video, you honestly have no idea. Well, there you go, Captain Beanard, that one was for you. What's going on, everyone? My name is Scorpion, coach of the L.E.A.F Agents, and welcome to the full seasonal recap for the L.E.A.F Agents in Battle Hub Draft League Season 1. As I've said in the past, this is my very first draft league I've participated in after a very long time of playing competitive Pokemon, mainly Smogon formats, and so taking a closer look at our journey I thought would be a fun and interesting experience to see how we adapted to the draft league format and of course how our overall performance was. Before I get right into it, a quick thank you to everyone who stuck with the L.E.A.F Agents, follows us, and supported us throughout the season. I really appreciate it, and we will definitely be back for BHDL Season 2 after the DLC comes out, so look forward to that. With that out of the way, I've tried making this recap as entertaining and easy to digest as possible, so I really hope you all enjoy, and let's jump right into it. So we've got three things we're going to look at today. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to have an overview of every single L.E.A.F agent, take a look at their overall performance throughout the season, and give them a rating on if they were better, as good as, or worse than initially expected. Then we're also going to crown our seasonal MVP based on who was the absolute best agent this season. And lastly, I want to give some credit, shoutouts, and closing thoughts about the BHDL Season 1 as a whole. So sit down, grab some popcorn, and before we continue, let's pay some respect to our boy Magnezone, who did not show up to any battles and then got traded away for Barraskewda in week 5. I'm sorry, bud, I love you. So real quick recap, this is what the final team looked like for the majority of Season 1. After the drafting process we had one leftover point, and of course our assigned Terra captains for the season were Iron Leash, Drifblim, and Venomoth. So with that said, let's jump right into our first draft pick, the undefeated king of OU being Great Tusk. So Great Tusk was about as good as I expected. Now obviously, for my very first draft league pick, I wanted something that I knew would be good no matter what. A Pokemon that I could see myself bringing to every battle, and something that I knew I could rely on. And Great Tusk was exactly that. Due to Great Tusk's presence, I really noticed how many coaches didn't even bother to bring entry hazards against me, which is a really big deal. And even if they did, being able to rapid spin them away easily was a big luxury. For that alone, Great Tusk was excellent. It was also a phenomenal wall breaker, rocking items like Choice Scarf and Choice Band with great effect, and because of that, its best performance in this regard was arguably in its best battle against the Down Under Crocodiles, where it managed to score a KO on Roller's team pretty much every single time it came in. Lastly, Great Tusk's overall versatility was just amazing, as being able to go defensive as well saved us from some big threats, as well, mainly against the Roaring Moon in week 7 against the West Texas Arcanines. So my expectations were very high for Great Tusk, and it definitely had its shortcomings as well, with an average speed tier and very subpar special defense, but Great Tusk absolutely still delivered, and I think was an excellent draft pick for the first round. Next up is obviously our mascot, the one and only face of the L.E.A.F Agents, Iron Leash. Now, I could go on forever about this Pokemon to no one's surprise, but I'll try to keep it short and sweet. When Iron Leash was announced on Pokemon Day 2023, alongside Walking Wake, I knew that this Pokemon had serious potential, and I was pretty much determined to make it work while everyone's eyes were on Walking Wake. I built a lot of Smogon teams with it in those metagames, and was thus very well and truly prepared to make it shine in this league, and whoo boy did it deliver. Iron Leash managed to score a staggering 19 KOs throughout the season and only died up to 5 times. As well as my first Terra captain, this Pokemon has had unrivaled sweeping potential and basically guarantees you're never ever out of the game. It pulled off multiple amazing sweeps throughout the season, such as in week 1 against the California Trailblazers and in the quarterfinals against the Atacama Tyranitar. But as much as these are arguably just as impressive, in my opinion its best showing was definitely in week 8 against Emerald Miner and the Demolition Force. It stood pretty much alone against the 4 Pokemon you see on screen right now, and managed to bring the game back for us, which ended the 7-game winning streak that the Demolition Force had going on prior to this round. So Iron Leash was absolutely amazing and did even better than I expected, in my opinion, as I thought originally that, you know, if you see it coming, that it was not going to be as good, but I was very wrong in that regard, thankfully, and Iron Leash absolutely deserved its spot as the mascot and its spot as the face of the Leaf Agents. Now on to our third pick, which is King Gambit. Now this Pokemon, in my opinion, was our first Pokemon that was definitely way worse than expected. Now King Gambit has numerous traits that still made it worthwhile bringing to battle, and for that reason we still used it quite a bit. Despite not having very good stats on my team in terms of kills and deaths, it was often the one punching holes for Iron Leafs, which it did decently well, and especially in the quarterfinals where it greatly weakened the opposing Thunderers in the Powdon, as well as outright KOing a Chestnut, which is a mon that it otherwise should have no hope in hell of ever beating. King Gambit does tend to force a lot of prep on opponents, and it was also a pretty decent defensive backbone thanks to that steel typing, but the main problem with King Gambit was its speed and also that lackluster typing, which does give it a 4x weakness to fighting. Now while a 4x weakness is usually not the worst thing in the world, fighting is a type that has very widely distributed coverage in Gen 9, and because of that and its slow speed, and also because it can't Terra in this league out of its weaknesses, it's a lot easier to beat King Gambit than you might expect. So overall, while this Pokemon was definitely still useful, it was 100% a bit disappointing, especially for our third pick and that high point cost that it came with. Let's see, next up is Rotom Wash, our beloved Malfunction, who despite the incident in week 3 has honestly been amazing throughout this season. It has unrivaled utility moves, it's an amazing pivot with Volt Switch, and most often was a good defensive backbone for us with its great typing. Due to its stats, it can go both physically and spatially defensive, unlike Great Tusk, and it has an amazing offensive typing to boot as well, being able to punish most ground types attempting to block Electric Stab with a powerful Stab Hydro Pump. It also has excellent synergy with Iron Leaves in particular, as it can get it in, weaken opponents for its sweep, and it's the only Pokemon on our team, especially after we traded Magnus on the way, that can set up electric terrain, in which Iron Leaves becomes especially deadly. In my opinion, its best game was in week 6, where it managed to 1v1 a Skeledirge while still low on health. It also kept a dangerous Moltres Galar in check, and it was able to replace Sun from Rhetorical with manual Rain Dance. So overall, Rotom was an absolutely amazing Pokemon who in my opinion definitely overperformed throughout this season for us. Now on to what is unfortunately, I have to say, our most disappointing Leaf Agent. I'm sorry Moltres, you are by far my favorite of the 3 legendary birds, both Kanto and Galarian forms, and as much as I think you're really cool, good, and underrated in Gen 9 OU as well, at the time of recording this video, you kind of suck in Draft League. Moltres was a decent pivot for us, it also completed the Fire, Water, Grass core, and Flame Body was honestly an amazing ability to have access to that definitely helped us throughout the season, but its lackluster typing and especially coverage holds it back. Losing Scorching Sands in particular, it was a huge blow for it throughout the season. Just like with King Gambit, Rock is a very common coverage type of Pokemon who Moltres normally does well against off and run, and when you see it coming, it just doesn't do very much. Obviously, it's also 4 times weak to Rock, which severely punished us the few times we didn't run heavy duty boots, and yeah, it honestly just didn't do that well, all things considered. As you can see, it's got no KOs. Its best performance, in my opinion, was against the California Trailblazers in week 1, where it still didn't get a KO due to missing a Fire Blast on the opposing Sneasler, but at least it did manage to stop it by getting a crucial Flame Body burn, which was absolutely amazing for Iron Leaves to come through later. So that was good, but overall Moltres has easily been my most disappointing Pokemon on the Leaf Agents. Next up is Frostlass, who I honestly think did better than expected. Frostlass has very good utility, ranging from weather settings, screens, entry hazards, and even stuff like Destiny Bond, and because of that you never quite know what this tricky Pokemon is going to do. On top of that, Ice Ghost has also been proven to be a surprisingly solid offensive typing, as I saw potential with it, and we ran Frostlass twice throughout the season with a Choice Spec set, and in both of the battles that it showed up, it also managed to get a KO, most notably luring and killing the Klefki against Beardo in the quarterfinals, which is huge for clearing the way for Iron Leaves to come through later. So yeah, I honestly don't have much to say about this Pokemon, but I really enjoyed using Frostlass, and it was an absolutely solid Pokemon, an addition to my team for sure. Alright, now for the big bad High Dragon. This Pokemon faces similar issues to Kingambit and Moltres for sure, in the sense that it has weaknesses that get preyed upon big time in Draft League where the opponent sees it coming. I can genuinely recall Hydreigon going down very early in at least 3 battles, but despite that it was still a pretty solid Mon. Its peak performance in my opinion was in week 2, where it scored 2 KOs with an unexpected Earth Power on the Volcanion and after a very unfortunate population bomb miss from the Mousehold, but overall this Pokemon has been pretty good. It's been a really solid breaker for us that allowed other Pokemon on the team to come through later. And, you know, it did that job in most battles pretty well. I'd still say Hydreigon is quite severely held back by a lack of Terra, which most notably lets it lose out on poison coverage, but despite that it was still a pretty solid Mon that again did its job throughout the battles. Alright, next up is Dashbun, a bit more on the underused side of our team, but Dashbun was only really on my team to fill 2 roles. It was meant to be an immunity to types my team otherwise lacks switching against, like Dragon and Fire, and be a Wish support Mon. And that it actually did really well. It only showed up to 2 battles, but in those 2 battles where it actually did show up, it managed to stop 2 very scary monsters in the Hisuian Arcanine on the Down Under Crocodiles and the Chi-Yu on the Piedmon Triad Kickers respectively. It is also the only Pokemon on my team, funnily enough, that has gone completely deathless throughout the season, which is pretty cool. Honestly, I think I should have used Dashbun more throughout the season, as it definitely would have come in clutch big time in the semi-finals as well if we had brought it. But still, I have to say, in this season, I was definitely the one that disappointed Dashbun and not the other way around, that's for sure. But still a very good Pokemon nonetheless, in my opinion, and especially for its point cost, I very much loved having Dashbun on the team this season. Alright, now let's get into discussing this guy, shall we? Barraskewda, the Pokemon dropped in week 5 after having gone unused by the Philadelphia Pidgeys, joined us after we traded Magnezone away, and holy moly, this Pokemon was incredible. It fixed what was, in my opinion, the only real weakness of my draft team, after making our highest speed tier go from Frosthass's 110 all the way up to 136, which is amazing. Barraskewda was mainly there for the speed control and being another breaker to assist Iron Lees, but with its amazing speed, power and coverage, it ended up going on a sweep quite a few times itself. Its peak performance, of course, was in week 7, where it scored 5 KOs against the West Texas Arcanines, who were left completely defenseless against our deadly Predator when Roaring Wind was dealt with. Honestly, an absolutely incredible Pokemon. Barraskewda was amazing, and I genuinely really enjoyed having this Pokemon on the team, and I would also happily draft it a second time, that's for sure. Right, with that we're nearing the end here. Next up we have Drifblim, who I unfortunately don't have as much to say about as I would have liked. We only really got to use Drifblim twice, and out of the 2 battles that it was in, it only really showed up once. The one time it did show up, however, it did get a pretty incredible KO as an unexpected Terra Captain, scoring a surprise KO against an unsuspecting Iron Moth with Terra Blast Ground, which is pretty cool. Drifblim definitely has a few good traits going for it, and I definitely don't regret drafting it at all, but on our journey it definitely was, unfortunately not as useful as some other team members. In an alternative timeline where we had some different matchups, I could have definitely seen Drifblim being more useful than it was for us throughout the season. And finally, last but not least, we have Venomoth, our 3rd and final Terra Captain on the team. Venomoth was actually the very last addition to our team in general, at which point I honestly didn't really know what to go for, but it was still a pretty decent pickup for our last member. Due to being a grounded poison type, we didn't have to deal with any toxic spikes throughout the season, which was very useful, and as a Quiver Dancer that it can Terra as well, it was honestly a pretty threatening sweeper that forced some prep on the opponent, which is always useful. However, that last point I think is also kind of a downside or a problem with Venomoth in my opinion, as even though it does force some prep, it's also very hard to set up for you if the opponent sees it coming, mainly due to its frailty. So it's a good one for sure, and I feel like I definitely could have used it better throughout the season, but it's undoubtedly without its shortcomings for sure, and for a Pokemon that in our draft board only costed 6 points, I honestly don't think I really expected more from it, so still as good as expected in my opinion. So there we go, that was our post-season team analysis. Now as for our overall performance in the league, we actually ended up getting a shared 3rd place together with the Philadelphia Pidgeys as semi-finalists, with our semi-finals opponent who knocked us out at 2nd place, Emerald Miner, and the Mamoswine Doubters coached by Raymond, who took it all and became the very first ever Pokemon Scholar. So congratulations to Raymond, Emerald Miner, and my fellow semi-finalist Captain Beanard, for their placements, and of course to all the other coaches who made it to playoffs. You guys did amazing, and I have to say I am very happy with this placement for my first ever draft league. I genuinely couldn't have asked for anything better. And alright, ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've all been waiting for, it is time we crown our very first seasonal MVP, which of course to no one's surprise is none other than our mascot L.E.A.F with that incredible 19-5 record. Fun fact, taking all of the playoff matches into account, L.E.A.F actually came in second place overall in the BHDL kill leader standings, even surpassing the Dragapult on the Demolition Force by 1 KO and being only surpassed by the Mammoth Swine Doubter Sandy Shocks, who got a staggering 22 registered KOs. I say registered because the quarterfinals results were unfortunately not documented, but even without that it still reigned supreme at the top. So hats off to these Pokemon for their incredible performances throughout the league for their coaches. As for L.E.A.F, of course, I couldn't be happier to have my mascot in here. It came in clutch big time throughout the season for us multiple times, and we definitely would not have done as well in this league without L.E.A.F, or even made it this far without it. So, well-earned crown as BHDL Season 1 MVP for our team, the L.E.A.F Agents. And there we go, that concludes our Season 1 recap. Before I close it off, I want to give a big shout out to Pokemaster88, Brandon P, Icy Dude, Beardo, Captain Beanard, Rolder, Arcanator52, Emerald Miner, and Apparator54 for giving me fun, competitive, and quality games throughout the season. I genuinely really enjoyed every single one of them. I say that from the bottom of my heart, and of course, a big thanks to all of the other coaches as well that I didn't get to play for staying with us, watching my videos, and making this incredible experience possible. Again, extra big shout out to you, Beardo, and Apparator54 for being the lovely owners and commissioners for this league. This incredible experience would not have been able to, go as well as it did without you guys. And so yeah, big thank you to you as well. And with all of that being said, my name is Scorpion. The L.E.A.F Agents are signing off with that one. One final big thank you to everyone for watching this recap and all of the other videos. And I will see you all in BHDL Season 2, which is coming very, very soon. Peace, guys. Love you all.